Hello YouTube, I'm Patty and this is my channel, My Handmade Lifestyle. I go by Patty Mac Knits pretty much everywhere online because I love knitting so much, but I also love a lot of things that are handmade, and this includes my love of plants. And I'm in the Master Gardener program here in Virginia Beach, and everything that I share with you here on this channel regarding plants I have learned through my studies with them. So today I'm going to show you how I water my succulents, and this actually works for just about all of your house plants because they all want well-draining soil, and I'm going to show you what that really looks like. The first time I saw well-draining soil, I was actually a little bit shocked. I thought, oh, that could explain some things with why I have been less than successful with some of my houseplants and some of my succulents. So let's take a look at what well-draining soil really means, and I'm going to show you how I water my plants. So without further ado, let's take a look at the plants. I have this collection of plants that I'm going to water for you today on camera, and pretty much they're all succulents except for this one, which is a ZZ plant, and this one I'm super proud of because I grew that from a cutting, and it's the only one that survived, but it did survive and it's going strong, and we're going to give it some water today as well. Let's start. Let me just tell you a little story here. So let me put these two together. So this has only been a few weeks, but a couple of weeks ago, this plant was in this pot, and it wasn't doing all that well, and I noticed when I watered it that the water wasn't coming out the bottom, and so I knew I needed to do something to help the drainage, and I'll go over that in the video, but it involves using a chopstick. But when I did my little chopstick method, what happened was this plant popped right out of this pot, and I realized that it had a very long root ball and that the root ball itself was not receiving any water because it was so packed into this pot. So I went ahead and put it in a bigger, deeper pot and loosened up some of the soil around the root ball, and it's doing so much better. Oh my gosh, it's so much better. Look how pretty she is. One way that you can sort of assess the health and happiness of your succulents is to just sort of touch the leaves, and if they feel like they have some resistance and they're strong, that's a good sign. If they feel like weak, that's not usually good. That means the leaves are not as healthy as they should be. And honestly, it just comes with time and having the plants, and you're going to lose a few and you're going to have some successes. So just, take it as a learning experience. This one I thought I was going to lose, and I repotted it in here, and it's a much better growing situation for it. I shared in a different video that when I brought this home, it was in a glass arrangement, something I had made for a job I was working, and this plant is not really well suited for that kind of environment, so it didn't do as well. You can put them in glass, but it's a little bit tricky, and we're going to talk about that, but not today. Today, let's just look at how I water these things and what it should look like when you water at home. These are my newest, and I should say my newest repottings. This plant I had, but I repotted it into this pot. This pot and plant are both new. So this is the first time I'm watering since I repotted these. So we'll see how they do. Okay, let me get set up and we'll start watering. When I water, I do it right at my sink. I have the empty dish drainer, and I do it all right here because, as you see, when the water hits the plant, it's going to run right out the bottom. So what I do on watering day is I make sure my sink is cleaned out, and I let them sit in the drainer. So let's see what that looks like. One of the big questions is, how do you know when to water? And you're going to learn. There's a couple of things you can do. So you're going to get acquainted with how your plant feels weight-wise when it's dry and when it's wet. And it's going to be much lighter when it's dry because water carries weight. And if your plant is well saturated, it doesn't need water. And it's going to be heavier. But I want to show you this other trick, and this is, again, you'll just have to learn this by feel. But I use a chopstick, and I'll just insert it into the soil. And you can judge by how well this chopstick, or you could use a wooden skewer, goes into the soil. If there's resistance, it probably has enough water. And if this were a light colored, like wooden skewer, we could actually see if it was damp or not. We're going to go ahead and put some water on this one. This one I know needs watered because it was dry when I put it in the pot, and I haven't watered it now, and it's been several days. So when I assess that, super dry. I mean, it just goes right through. So when you water, it's also a good time to just kind of examine the plant, see if there's any leaves. Oh, whoops, need to come off. And on this one, so I've got a leaf here, and we're just going to pull it off. And it's perfectly normal for your plants to lose leaves from the bottom. All plants lose leaves in their life cycle. That is a normal thing, so don't flip out over that. They grow from the center out and up. So this is the new growth, and under here is the old growth. And it's just like you lose your hair, you know. The old stuff dies off and the new stuff comes in. So don't freak unless you're losing a lot of leaves, and then you have a problem. But all right, let's look at watering. First thing I do, I let the water get warm. You want to use warm water when you're watering all of your plants. I mean, think about it. If you were just like hanging out, minding your own business, enjoying a sunny spot, and somebody came along and doused you in ice cold water, how would you feel? Would you like that? Of course not. The plants don't like it either. And I'm sorry this video is not better. I have to like crouch down next to my sink to show you this. Do what we have to, right? Okay, this water is nice and warm. You don't want hot, you want warm. Okay. And it's not like, you don't want to have this like raging stream of water. We're not trying to drown our plants. But that's warm. And I'm just going to put the water on. Now this is the first watering, so it's going to take a little more time for that water to work its way through. But see that? See how it immediately is running out of the bottom? That's what you want. See that? It's just like immediately whatever I'm putting on top is running right through. That, my friends, is well-drained soil. This is also why I do it in the sink, because it is a mess. But that's how you make sure that your plants are draining properly. And that one's done. It's been soaked. The water's coming to the bottom. I'm just gonna let it hang out. Let's do this one. This one was living in a different planter, and it was in that planter for like a year and a half that had no drainage. And it lived. It did fine, but it's not the greatest situation. Okay, now it's starting to make its way to the bottom. See how it's dripping? That means this pot is set up correctly. Kind of a slow drip. Now let me show you something. If you have a planter that's taking a while to drain or doesn't want to drain at all, you take your chopstick and you very gently insert it in that bottom drainage hole and you loosen it up. Because sometimes the soil can get like kind of crammed in and doesn't want to drain. So just use your chopstick to loosen those things up. There we go. You can use the chopstick from above. It makes little channels for the water to run. There we go. And yes, it is a mess. But do you want your plants to be healthy or not? This is how you do it. Okay. Let's do this one. Now, see how that just runs right through? That's when you know it's draining properly and the plant has enough water to keep it healthy. Okay. I'll do this one. Isn't this beautiful? This one, this is in an Echeveria plant family, and these things are kind of prima donnas. They, to me, are the hardest to keep. They require the most fuss, but they are beautiful. But they're the hardest ones to really keep. Okay, there we go. It's starting to come through the bottom. Okay, so there we are. Just runs right out the bottom. That's exactly what you want. Let's do the ZZ. See, right out the bottom. The ZZ fell over. So now I gotta clean up my top dressing, but I have, let me show you this. Okay, this is what the sink looks like. the watering and draining out process. But down in here, let's see, let me brighten that up for you. I have that screen, and you want that because that's gonna collect the dirt and any of the top dressing that will fall off the plants, and yeah, it's gonna happen. So just have that screen in your drain to keep stuff from going down. You do not want soil and rocks and moss or whatever you like to be going down the drain. That is bad news. Okay, let's water the jade. This jade I got as a little 2-inch plant from Trader Joe like a year ago. And I have repotted it twice. And there it comes. She was a little bit dry, I'm letting that water soak in. So in winter, you have less humidity and the soil dries out more. And so it can be a little bit more fiddling around to get soil that's that dried out re-moistened. And there we go. And it's draining just fine. So I know that it has enough moisture. And let me show you, this plant lives in the windowsill. And see how I have its little tray set up. So I put it up here. Whoops, hold on. Let me turn you around. The jade lives in the window, and in the tray I have all those little pebbles, the pea gravel. And so what happens is, as the excess water drains out of the plant, it's going to wind up in that little bed. And that means that it's not reabsorbed by the plant. This plant is not so dried out that it needs to be soaked in order to water. Sometimes they get so dried out you have to soak them to get them re-moistened or watered. I'm not sure what the term is. I have done that before, but these are not in that situation. So anyway, anything excess is going to run down there, and that's what you want. You don't want it reabsorbing. Even if it was so dried out, if I had to soak it to rehydrate it, that's the word I'm looking for, I would still, once it's rehydrated, put it on either the dish drainer like this or up here to finish draining, because you just don't want it to reabsorb water that's coming off of the soil, because it does leach out salt when you water, and you don't want the plant to reabsorb that. So let me show you how I have these set up. So this is watered. We're going to take it over here, and it lives in this window now, and you can see I got a little pebble tray for it, and it just goes right there. So anything that runs out will go right into the pebbles, and it's going to evaporate really fast because it's super dry right now. And if you're worried about water on your leaves, you can just gently wipe them off, but unless you've got like really crappy water, I don't really have I guess if you had really hard water you wouldn't want to do this, but mine don't really spot, so I don't worry too much about it. I mean, in nature they get rained on, that's how they get watered, so it's not like you can't ever let water touch the leaves. All right, let's get the other ones. So let's see this one. Whoop. Okay, here's a nice close-up of that. Look at the new leaves coming in. See how everything grows from the center on these. The golem, it's got some new ones coming in. I love that one. Isn't that unusual? All right, let's put it over here. And I set it up to live like in the middle here. And so anything that drains out over the next couple of days will just go right into that pebble tray, and it won't go back up into the plant. Isn't that pretty? All right, let's get the last one that goes in there. And I'm really excited to see what this one is going to do now that I have it potted correctly and can water it like it should be watered and cared for. Because before, I mean, it lived 1.5 years in that non-draining pot. So it's super exciting to see where it's going to go. But there it is. Everybody's happy and watered and ready to go, and they'll probably need watering again, I would say, in a week or 10 days, because the pots are not that big and we're in the middle of winter and it's super dry, and I do run dehumidifiers in here, so yeah, they'll probably need watered sooner than you think. But you get a feel for how does it feel when it's full of water, and you sort of make a mental note of that weight, and then you check them in about a week and see how it feels. was talking about sometimes you have to rehydrate the plant, and that's when you would put it in like a basin of warm water to soak, to rehydrate. I'm going to show you how you know when it's time to do that. Okay, this one. See how this soil is pulling away from the side? That means it's like, oh, it's so dry. The reason it's so dry is because I have to do some major surgery on this plant. That's going to be a different video. So I wanted to let it dry out completely before I figured out exactly what I was doing. But basically, I've got to kind of cut it up. It got really top heavy and it fell over and it broke. Isn't that sad? It just got too big. But in terms of knowing when it's time to put your plants in to soak, and this is true of house plants as well. If your stuff is so dry that it's pulled away from the edges like this, you're going to want to put that in like a shallow basin, and you're just going to let it sit until this is completely hydrated from the top, and then you're going to pull it out, and then you're going to just leave it in that sink basin to drain. And that's how you rehydrate the plant. If you just keep pouring water from the top, it's not really going to rehydrate it properly, just because when the soil gets that dry, it just can't absorb. And you've got to get water to the root ball for the plant to take in the moisture it needs. So anyway, yeah, if you see this, time to soak. Okay, that's the video for today. I hope that answers some questions for you on watering practices and what does well-draining soil actually look like. Now you know, I hope. If you have questions, just pop them below. I will do my best to answer. But here's my little setup, and I love this. If you missed the video on how I potted this arrangement, I'll link to it up here and below. And I really appreciate you watching. I hope you're enjoying these little plant videos that I do. As you can see, I have a little bit of a problem. Could be worse, right? So thanks for watching. I hope you will subscribe to the channel before you leave today, and like the video, and let me know what your favorite succulent is. And let me know what your favorite succulent is. I would love to hear. So, okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.